if medicine could be more personal? What if healthcare didn't just treat diseases but predicted it? What if we could impact healthcare differently?
It was very rewarding but limiting at the same time. And being in the field of research, so I started thinking outside the box and wanting to do something more scalable and impactful. Oftentimes by the time someone receives the diagnosis of diabetes, they probably had it for over a decade. Certain biomarkers absolutely should be part of let's call it a yearly physical. You can build today a digital twin. It can create predictive models for your health. It can guide you through food, supplements, exercise. And it's very cool because we have it today. We have it in the market and it will only get better over time. It's an evolution. We're going through an evolution of what we didn't know and now we know.
Join Disruptive Doctors.
I'm Dr. Selina, your host and co-founder of Disruptive Doctors. At Disruptive Doctors, we're building a platform to help doctors like you impact healthcare differently. In Postcall, we dive into the untold stories of doctors who are breaking the mold, trailblazers who are redefining what it means to be a doctor. This is Postcall Beyond the White Coat.
My guest today is one of the most impressive CVs I've ever came across. An endocrinologist, a geneticist, an investor, a CEO, and a professor. A global force in longevity and precision medicine. But this episode is not about his title alone. It's about the doctor behind them and what is precision medicine. Because before going into tech and startup and lectures, Dr. Fady Hannah-Shmouni was a clinician asking deeper questions. What if medicine could be more personal? What if healthcare didn't just treat diseases but predicted it? What if we could impact healthcare differently? Now, in this conversation, we're going to explore his story, the science behind precision medicine, and the mindsets doctors need to step into for the future of healthcare. Now, a future where we no longer react, but design, tailor, and transform care in ways we've only just begun to imagine. Welcome to the show, Dr. Fady.
Thanks so much for the kind introduction and really a pleasure to be with you today.
So let's start from the beginning, the origin story. Now, who is Dr. Fady beyond the bio, and what does our audience need to know about you?
Yeah, so I'm trained in endocrinology and genetics, always was attracted to the field of medicine from a very young age, growing up in Canada. But I was surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs and engineers in my family. The moment I said that I wanted to go into medicine, they sort of celebrated. So I became the first doctor in the family. And that took me through a very long path of study, which included medicine, internal medicine, endocrinology, and genetics, so 3 different specialty training. I then got recruited to the NIH, National Institute of Health in the States, and helped run the endocrine fellowship program and did a lot of research on the adrenal gland, which controls the body's stress system through the release of hormones such as cortisol. But, I did that for many years and it was very rewarding but limiting at the same time. And being in the field of research, it made me realize how limited both the research resources and the outcomes of research is. So I started thinking outside the box and wanting to do something more scalable and impactful. That's when I became, initially an early stage investor, and that took me through the rabbit hole of investing and building and venture building and thinking really outside the box as a physician to solve a bigger problem, which is, how can I impact as many lives as I can through both impactful investments and also building products in the field of healthcare that can reach many lives as possible? And I think that was the moment when I realized that I don't want to be a full-time doctor anymore and I want to focus on something bigger. Here's my story in a nutshell.
Wow, that is a long journey compressed in like a few minutes. But before we really dive down into what you're doing now, how did you get into medicine? I know you said you had some interest. Was there something that pulled you into medicine?
No, I think from what I recall, I was driving with my cousin and he asked me what you want to do at a young age. I believe it was grade 6 or 7. And I was attracted to the field of biology and then that took me through making the right choices throughout school and then college to want to, study and prepare myself for the path of medicine. And it was very rewarding at a very young age. I really enjoyed understanding, the biochemistry of the body and the biology of the body. I was also surrounded by some of my family friends that were medical doctors, and I shadowed them in clinics and surgeries. And this further sort of validated my interest in wanting to go into that field to make, a positive change in this world and impact as many lives as possible.
What did you find most rewarding about medicine?
Yeah, that reward came after. It wasn't, wasn't an obvious reward initially. The initial reward was to study the biology and to become a doctor and to try to help as many individuals as possible through the field of medicine. But when it became evident that, through the skill set acquisition over time, that it had a major impact on someone's life, helping someone uh, through my internal medicine training to sort of come back to life after a cardiac arrest, or helping someone's severe diabetes get under control and seeing them walk outside the hospital again. That immediate reward of impacting someone's life very positively gave me that sort of first reward of being a doctor. And I doubled down on that. And for many years, I was treating individuals both sick in the acute care setting or individuals with chronic disease in the outpatient setting. And that further validated the importance of my journey in medicine, which is to create a positive impact in people's lives. At the same time, I recognize that it is a very stressful job and that it comes with, a big responsibility, and it's not scalable on the individual level. So that's when I started thinking outside the box and wanted to do something more rewarding and still and with the same ethos of impacting people's lives, but something greater than the 8 to 5 sort of outpatient medicine job that I wanted to pursue. And I think that's where life took me through the venture building route.
Okay, how many healthcare systems did you work in?
Several. So as part of my medical training, I was in a medical training facility, so an academic facility, then my medicine abroad. Then I worked in a research setting at the University of British Columbia, researching rare diseases, mostly in the outpatient setting, but I had some exposure into the inpatient setting. So that exposed me to the Canadian healthcare system. Then I went on to pursue my internal medicine residency at Yale School of Medicine in New Haven, Connecticut, which is a very interesting area, an area with very high catchment of diseases, gave me excellent exposure into the field of internal medicine. I then went on to train in endocrinology at the National Institute of Health, which is a publicly funded research institute that gave me exposure into the physician scientist route. Then I went to University of Toronto for my clinical biochemical genetics training. And for the first time, I was exposed to both the pediatric population and then the rare disease late onset adult population. So it was a very interesting exposure. I then worked in clinical medicine between the NIH in the States and the public health system at the University of Toronto. And now I work in building precision health and longevity clinics all over the world. And we've launched initiatives between Dubai and North America. So that is more of a private setting with high cost and out of pocket pay services. So the exposures across these different areas of medicine have really helped shape my interest in the field of precision health today and how to build and scale various programs on both the public and the private sector so we could deliver the newer form of medicine, which is more personalized than ever before.
Okay, what's the difference that you notice you did mention you've gone through so many different, like at least 3 different healthcare systems. Was it difficult? Was it, was it difficult just getting into it, trying to understand? Or what were the differences you saw? Was there one that was more superior than the other?
Yeah, a lot of differences, but with the same sort of basic principles, which is to use your clinical skills and the available resources to come up with a diagnosis and to use the available treatments and to understand how to navigate the system. There's obviously a lot of differences between different health systems, whether it's on the payment side or on the availability of resources, including medications. The other major difference is learning technology, whether it's the electronic medical records or how to fax a script or how to follow up with a patient. But I think overall, physicians have the executive skill sets and the malleability to move between systems. And it was also part of our training to move between different hospitals in a region. And especially in the United States, training programs offer training sites between publicly funded hospitals to privately funded hospitals to community clinics and settings. And we were often exposed to different health technologies, including different electronic medical records and different payment providers and so on. So it wasn't a very difficult transition, but yeah, it adds, I guess, to the stress of learning for individuals moving between systems.
Okay. Why did you? Was there a reason you decided to get into endocrinology and specifically into this? Into studying the adrenal gland. Was there something there that attracted you?
My exposure at the University of British Columbia before studying residency on rare diseases included studying the hormone systems and the various feedback loop. And I thought that was very interesting. So I wanted to explore that better through a formal training in endocrinology. But also, I think the mentorship exposure that I had early on through two main endocrinologists at the University of British Columbia helped shape that decision of wanting to become an endocrinologist. And that further got solidified through my internal medicine training, where I became very much interested in understanding the pathophysiology of endocrine diseases, particularly hypertension and hormonal causes of hypertension that arise from excess secretion of hormones from the adrenal glands. And so it was a sequence of events in my life and throughout my exposures early on that helped me shape that decision. I don't regret it at all. I had a great time learning endocrinology, especially at the NIH. It was a physician scientist track. I till this day I'm involved in the research side, and with a lot of the programs that we design at those longevity clinics, we see a lot of comorbidities related to endocrine diseases. And so, the big question I ask myself now is how can we help with early diagnosis and scale healthcare services, particularly those with endocrine disease, so we could have early diagnosis and catch disease very early on before the existing diagnostic threshold.
Do you think that since you've dived deep into endocrinology and earlier you mentioned hypertension that's caused by hormonal imbalances and all, do you think that doctors don't understand enough about endocrinology?
It's a very well, fortunately, a lot of these chronic endocrine diseases are, studied across different specialties of medicine, from gynecology all the way to primary care and internal medicine. But a lot of endocrine diseases, which is also true about most chronic diseases, is they go unnoticed for many years. So I'll give you the example of diabetes. Oftentimes by the time someone receives the diagnosis of diabetes, they probably had it for over a decade, because disease moves from a wellness state to a pre-diagnostic stage to a diagnostic stage over years. And current diagnostic thresholds don't catch disease very early. And that's why we need better biomarkers, likely through a multi-omic approach, which is using different biological data from so many different sources to try to phenotype the continuum between wellness and illness sooner than later. And it is that gap between the pre-morbid and the morbid stage, morbid being the diagnostic stage, is what I'm very much interested in right now uncovering. But yes, most endocrine diseases are very challenging. They require a multi-tier diagnostic pathway, typically starting with a screening biomarker, followed by a confirmatory biomarker, followed by expertise and understanding how to interpret both the screening and the diagnostic testing, followed by imaging and in some instances, diagnostic dilemmas and gray zones and referrals to multi-specialists and so on. Some of these conditions are not very straightforward. And that's why, being a general endocrinologist today even may not be sufficient in uncovering the nuances of some of these endocrine diseases. And some endocrinologists are also now pursuing subspecialties in endocrinology to focus on one particular organ and to become a master of diagnosis of that particular organ. So I was fortunate to train with mentors that focused on the pituitary and the adrenal glands. And that gave me, especially during my NIH training, an opportunity to really see from their lens how they go about, sort of working up an individual with these both common and some rare instances of diseases from these organs.
What you mentioned was so interesting because it just triggered a lot of memories from my clinical days. I did work in a clinic for a long time, a community clinic, and you see a lot of hypertensive cases, and they can be really young, like in their 30s. And we try to work them up, but we don't do biomarkers. We just do all the basic blood works, and we can't find anything and call it essential hypertension, and then just treat them with medication, and that was it.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those cases. So we helped uncover hormonal cause of hypertension in our specialized clinic in the NIH during my training, and then when I took on the program director role of the endocrine fellowship program, of about 300 different primary aldosteronism cases. And primary aldosteronism is an endocrine disorder due to dysregulation of aldosterone secretion from the adrenal gland that leads to water and sodium retention that's renin independent, and that leads to a secondary cause of hypertension. It turns out that it's super common. Anywhere from 20 to 30% of patients with hypertension may have an underlying, mineralocorticoid excess condition, including primary aldosteronism. It is truly a spectrum. And if we use the diagnostic threshold set by guidelines today for primary aldosteronism, you'd miss most of the sort of milder cases of primary aldosteronism. So that requires a hypertension specialist or an endocrinologist with expertise and dedication to this particular condition to tease out this condition in a patient with hypertension. So what I do in sort of our existing precision health clinics is to screen everybody independent of their premorbid status for primary aldosteronism, because I want to detect and uncover this condition very early. And so I don't set barriers to entry for screening and diagnosing primary aldosteronism, because I've seen that spectrum from mild cases all the way to severe cases. And as a hypertension specialist, I really want to take the opportunity, especially in someone with hypertension, independent of the degree of hypertension, to screen for this condition. And we can go on and on about different endocrine related cases that have this sort of mild to severe disease continuum, similar to what I mentioned earlier, which is that wellness to disease continuum. And what I'm interested right now, as I ventured into the wellness and longevity space, in building these clinical programs and technologies to help scale proactive personalized healthcare services, is to try to uncover biomarkers and diseases very early on in that sort of wellness spectrum before they hit that diagnostic threshold and become a full-blown disease, because by then it might have been too late.
So are you saying that everyone should get a biomarker screening regardless of whether you're symptomatic or not?
Certain biomarkers absolutely should be part of let's call it a yearly physical. Everyone should get an executive physical check. And that could be tailored per geography, availability of resources. But I think if I were to design a population health screening program that would be, say, government or insurance funded, I would expand on the existing sort of old archaic physical examination and add more biomarkers, predictive analytics, technologies, so we could, one, better profile the individual's physiology and really understand where are they on that wellness disease spectrum. So obviously it's not economically feasible to do, 100 gigabyte data upload through a full body MRI and whole genome and 100 plus biomarkers on everybody. But I think it's an opportunity to come together and create a consensus on how should we update our current yearly examinations and the thresholds that we set for certain screenings, whether it's for cancers or diabetes or other chronic conditions. And it's still a nascent field, but it is moving in the right direction.
Okay, before that, I think we're diving quite deep into this, but let's zoom out a little bit just to give our audience some perception to understand, the heart of your work, precision medicine, multiomics, and digital twins. So perhaps you can unpack it step by step for our audience to understand not just the science, but the significance of it. So what exactly is precision medicine? How would you define it? And how is this different from our conventional practice of medicine?
Yeah, it's a very interesting field of medicine that is delivered for the individual's needs, because no two individuals are alike when it comes to their biology, their environmental exposure, their risk factors. And it's really using data to personalize care and diagnosis and treatments based on someone's, let's call them biological blueprints. It's also being used interchangeably with longevity medicine or healthy longevity medicine, which is sort of a nascent field of understanding someone's biology through advanced technologies and their risks to then personalize services and treatments. And multiomics is the study of big biological data that then get analyzed into a predictive pattern. So it may facilitate both precision medicine and healthy longevity care delivery. And I think all of these terms and fields of medicine are promising, yet early in what we hope to achieve from them, which is to prevent individuals from becoming patients in the first place through early diagnostics and predictable medicine. And we use a lot of technologies in these, let's call them subspecialties of medicine, to help uncover biomarkers and disease patterns very early on. Now, there are clinics out there that have sort of developed their models for precision health and longevity related services. And what they do is they use advanced diagnostics, biomarkers, examinations to uncover disease early. And I think that's the general theme that we're seeing in the industry today. It may obviously evolve towards other things down the road, including regenerative medicines as sort of part of the secure delivery models in those clinics. But yeah, in a nutshell, understand biology and personalize care towards someone's needs.
I like what you said earlier about preventive medicine is making sure that they do not become patients. Because what I remember very clearly from my training days and while I was still practicing as a doctor, if a patient comes to me and he does not have any diagnosis, he's well and he's healthy, he doesn't have hypertension, doesn't have diabetes, he's just coming to see me. I remember I used to get so annoyed. Like, why are you here to see me? You are well. You should not be here, right? We've never been trained to think like, okay, he's not sick yet. What can I do to make sure he never becomes a patient?
Yeah, well said. So all of us are ticking bombs. We've got so many risk factors that we've both inherited through our ancestors, and these are genetic risk factors. Throughout life, we develop epigenetic risk factors, primarily from exposures. Throughout our life, we have exposure related and what we call it exposomic exposures, which are exposures from your environment, whether it's air, environment, light, sound, especially your home exposures, all the way to lifestyle related habits that lead to and accelerate risk factor acquisition. And all of that leads to sort of a compounded effect on the body and a stress on the body that leads to the development of disease. So we're very limited today with what we offer as part of our annual checkups in terms of really uncovering this sort of wellness disease spectrum biomarkers, because you really need to dig deep into someone's physiology, likely through a multi-omic approach, which is the best approach we have today in uncovering these different patterns and risk factors to really understand whether someone's healthy or not. And that may include, doing a genetic test, an epigenetic test, a comprehensive blood panel, a full body MRI, physiologic testing like VO2 max and hand grip, a full skin examination, a colonoscopy, an upper endoscopy, and you name it, probably tens of other tests needed and analyzed through an operating system that will give you an output. And these outputs are then compared to populations, assumed healthy populations, to understand whether someone is healthy or not. Let's not also forget about mental health and screening our operating system, which is the brain, for any health-related conditions, including life stressors and whatnot. So I can assure you that all of us have at least one abnormality across all these different tests that I mentioned. And I don't think the traditional healthcare model today, including the clinics and the annual checkup, is ready to offer a comprehensive, let's call it executive check. This is what you see in the private healthcare setting. And it's because it's not economically feasible today, nor are we trained to offer these comprehensive assessments to uncover whether someone is in a well state or a disease state. And I don't see that changing very soon with our existing traditional models.
What you just said, it feels like it's going against what we've been trained, at least what we've been trained here as doctors, because ever since I was a junior doctor until the entire time I was working, I've always been said you're supposed, 80-90% of what you can find is in the history taking. You're not supposed to subject your patient to a barrage of tests. Your test needs to be intentional. Why are you doing this test? But just now you mentioned like we probably have to take a whole bunch of biomarkers, take their VO2 max, probably a colonoscopy, some scans, and all that. Do you think this is going against conventional medicine, like what it's been trained to us?
Yeah, it's an upgrade to what we were taught, and it's the evolution of the next wave of medical diagnostics. So call it medicine 3.0 or the newer medicine, because we have evidence today to suggest that if we add these extra diagnostic tests, that we may uncover more about the individual's physiology and risks, and also tailor the right lifestyles and therapies for their needs. But let's not forget that this adds more cost. This adds more time, energy, effort for the provider, the health system, and it's not currently economically feasible. Moreover, we don't know if this big data approach has outcomes related to it, because it hasn't been rigorously studied, especially in the context of well-designed trials and research studies. So it is an expensive form of medicine today, but I think things are going to get much cheaper over time, both on the biomarker side and then on these comprehensive assessment sides. And I think then it makes it more scalable for care delivery to a larger population.
Mark your calendar for Disruptive Doctors annual conference and exhibition. It's happening the 20th and 21st of September. This conference isn't about fitting into label. It's about expanding what is possible in healthcare and reimagining the doctor's role in it. This is where forward-thinking doctors come together to drive real change in healthcare. For those who refuse to settle, this flagship event brings together doctors from diverse backgrounds to explore fresh approaches, share ideas, and connect with a community of doctors to impact healthcare differently. Remember to get your tickets on our website at disruptive-doctors.com/conference 2025.
Okay, you've mentioned biomarker many times. Like, what are the recommended biomarkers you would say a doctor should do for their patients as part of screening?
So physical examination, questionnaires, including screening for depression and sleep, looking at wearable data and conducting a physical examination. I think that's at the base of the pyramid. And then you build upon that with at least 100 plus biomarkers per year, focusing on metabolic biomarkers, electrolytes, liver function tests. There are advanced biomarkers now in the market, whether they're the cell-free DNA tests for cancer screening, all the way to the new Alzheimer's biomarker that can detect Alzheimer's disease very early on in its natural disease course. And then we look at physiologic biomarkers and biometrics, whether it's for fitness quantification through VO2 max, all the way to body composition analysis to understand fat distribution. Then comes the imaging, and there are a lot of direct-to-consumer products out there, especially in the United States, including full-body imaging today, and it's yielding very interesting both clinical and research results on pattern of disease. So at a minimum, pick a category and double down on it.
Okay, so say if I were to step into your clinic, how would you approach this precision medicine and preventive medicine approach on me?
So from my experience, no individual is 100% healthy and free of risk factors. If I were to design a program for assumed healthy individuals today, and if I had all the resources in the world, I would have you come through the clinic, have you get a physical examination by a healthcare provider, have a psychologist sit down with you and talk to you about any tangles in the brain, screen you for depression and anxiety. If you were older, I would screen you for dementia, independent of your risk factors. I would do a hearing assessment, a dilated eye examination. I would have you run on a treadmill and measure your VO2 max fitness score. I would do a comprehensive muscle and movement assessment to look for any gait abnormalities. I would then measure your body composition through, say, an in-body technology. I will then collect a lot of biological samples from you. So salivary for genetics and epigenetics, stool for microbiome, over 100 plus blood biomarkers. And then I would perform a full body MRI and a CT scan of the heart, looking for calcification of the heart vessels, and maybe add an echocardiogram and thyroid ultrasound, and obviously a DEXA, the best test we have today for body composition. I would then use an operating system and a multi-omic analytic platform that will crunch all that data and create your digital twin and different predictive analytic scores. I would then intervene if I find something that is potentially reversible, or if I uncover risk factors, then have you sit with our multidisciplinary team so we could influence the trajectory of your risk and educate you on how to live healthier longer, whether it's through understanding your exposures at home or at work, whether it's through giving you the right mental health training, the right precision or personalized based supplements and food habits, all the way to understanding what happiness is to you. And of course, muscle is the organ of longevity. And what are you doing to build muscle and staying fit and staying healthy and avoiding the toxins in our environment? So it's, as you see, it's a full-time job for both the multidisciplinary team delivering a service like this and the patient or the client, because it's not easy to stay healthy today. It requires a commitment from the individual, especially when it comes to focusing on the basics, like getting good quality sleep and eating well and exercising every day and avoiding toxins and being in a community and taking care of one's brain and so on. It's not easy. And I don't think we understand the responsibility of taking care of one's body. It should be a daily ritual and a checklist that everyone should go through every day that is focused on their health and well-being.
How much earlier you mentioned that once you've gathered all this data, you run it through the machine and then you come up with certain interventions. Now, if say one were to have a family history of heart disease, all the males are dying at 50. Now, if you were to find this individual with this kind of risk factor and you do some intervention, I mean, you catch him early, say he's 45, 5 years before 50, like how much can it really change for this person?
Yeah, it changes a lot. So, for example, you can catch a brain aneurysm and perform surgery on it before it ruptures and causes a major disability in someone's brain. Or if you catch someone with prediabetes and they have excess weight, and if you get rid of the weight, you can potentially reverse and cure their diabetes risk, all the way to undiagnosed hypertension that go unnoticed for many years. Hence, they call it the silent disease. I mean, there's so many other examples of silent diseases, early stage cancer and depression, and, mental stress. So the idea here is to use the available resources we have today to really uncover risk and to use advanced technologies, including AI predictive algorithms, to predict the risk of this individual, so we can equip with the individual with a data-driven approach so they could live healthier longer and, more importantly, become informed. They call it become the CEO of your health. And the major responsibilities of a CEO is to identify risks, to do investor relations, to have a strategy to grow the company. So imagine if someone becomes the CEO of their health and they identify risk and they have a strategy to healthy or growth down the road. They need data, right? And they need a team that's going to help them execute on their vision for the company. So same thing with the human body. Individuals should treat the human body as a corporation. They need to understand the blueprints of the corporation. They need to have a care team, so that they're C-suite executives that will guide them through the success of the company. And just like any company, it will go through turmoils and ups and downs, and the CEO needs to be equipped with the right resources and tools and information to be able to navigate those challenges. So the role of a precision health and a longevity center today is to help the CEO identify all these important pillars so they could become sort of better representatives of their companies, the company being the body, with the operating system being the brain. So I think that if we treat our bodies through this executive lens, we will appreciate it more and take better care of it, and also uncover these very important risks that may prevent us from being outperforming what we want to achieve.
Well, that's a very good analogy because yeah, whenever, if you're running a company, you'd be very stringent about it. Everything that goes in, everything that goes out. But if you're not, I mean, if you do treat your body the same manner, I think things would be so much more different. Like thinking about what you put into your body, how much time you allocate to exercise, working out, and even being diligent about the yearly checkups. I think that would be a real game changer.
Yeah, well said. Obviously, it's running a good company requires resources, capital, team, and most of individuals out there may not have these prerequisites. So then you're going to have to sort of dummy it down a little bit and be realistic with what's available for the individual to work with. And that's why I think sticking to the basics is very important, which is show me how you sleep and what you eat and how you go about in your day. Show me your schedule. Show me what is your perception about healthy living. Let me understand your environment. Let me understand your risk factors. Let me see what's preventing you from being a better version of yourself. And that conversation is very important, and that sets the basics that's needed to be optimized before going into everything else I mentioned, like the big biomarker approach. But understanding the operating manual of every individual, I think is very important.
Earlier, you mentioned digital twin. But what's this concept of digital twin in healthcare, and how is it applied?
It's very exciting. It's still nascent, but we have it commercially available today, and you're going to see different iterations of it. But essentially, a digital twin is a representations of someone's complex biology through big data. And you can build today a digital twin, which is a model through large data, including data from questionnaires, data from your genetics, your epigenetics, your microbiome, your transcriptome, your proteome, they call it biomic data from your imaging, which is called physiomic data, data from your wearable, which is called digitomics, and then data from your exposures in your environment, which is called exposomics. Then, and a trained engine and a model can take all this big data and create your digital footprint, which then can be in your pocket through the app. It constantly analyzes your risks. It can create predictive models for your health. It can guide you through food, supplements, exercise. It could alert your providers through analyzing your big data. And I think all of us in the near future will have their digital twins in their pockets, constantly analyzing risks, both at home and biological risk. And it will be a major sort of advancement in the field of precision health and preventative medicine.
So I guess I just want to understand it a little bit more. If say I have my digital twin in my pocket, so I'm going to eat this meal, does it mean that it's going to tell me, okay, if I ate this meal, what's going to happen to me in my body? What's going to happen? Is it going to cause a sugar spike? Would it tell me, oh, please, you need to avoid this? How does it work? Like practical day-to-day use?
Yeah, practical day-to-day use. Think about it as your AI health companion that's going to accompany you from the comfort of your phone to constantly analyze your risks. So continuous risk, including wearable data, all the way to periodic risk through blood work and other big data analysis, and also continuous risk through exposure analysis, including air quality, to then recommend for you many things. Say in the context of a poor sleep score from your wearable, it will talk to you and recommend certain things you can do to help with recovery from a poor sleep. It may also help recommend certain foods and exercises that may get you to an optimal state. When it comes to your big data, it will analyze your data for risk of chronic disease, including heart disease and cancers and so on. And it will recommend healthy lifestyles for you. It will put those lifestyles in your calendar so you could follow them on a day or weekly basis. And so it's your guide, it's your companion that will work with you on ensuring that you live a healthier life. And it will probably get more and more sophisticated down the road where it can talk to your practitioners and go to medical appointments on your behalf. let's call them your avatars, right? Or your clones, and your clones will know you and your data very well, and it will, research the literature and compare your data with big population databases and literatures to then recommend the most evidence-based products and services for you. So think about it as your research assistant. And it's very cool because we have it today. We have it in the market, and it will only get better over time.
Yeah, I did hear someone say that AI is in its worst form right now.
Yeah, it's still in the beginning stages, but there's just abundance and exponential rise of different AI technologies right now. And I think if we stay alive in the next 5 years, we're going to see a remarkable advancement in technologies. They're quite disruptive, and they're going to help us sort of redesign healthcare delivery. We're going to look back over the next decades and say, what were we thinking about writing clinical notes on papers? What were we thinking about just doing, XYZ biomarkers, right? What were we thinking about, treating patients with cancer with XYZ? And we're going through a reset. And I think technology is helping us really redesign the future of healthcare, which is very, very exciting.
What are you seeing right now that is like really I, a lot of things you mentioned is nascent, but what do you see is the most rapid advancement, at least in healthcare and in terms of precision medicine and longevity? What do you see right now?
Well, now we're seeing a lot of disruptive, venture-backed companies offering consumer products for diagnostics, including full body MRI, testing for, the biomics, including genetics and epigenetics. We're also seeing direct-to-consumer at-home blood-related services, which is sort of democratizing access to, screening for your health and wellness. And we're also seeing an excellent user interface and predictive models that is helping with the client journey. And we're also seeing companies gamifying health, right? And rewarding consumers for living a healthy life. And so we're seeing a beautiful convergence between technology, entrepreneurship, building scalable products, gamification. And those models are really good and predictive. And so we're also seeing advancement in technology that will have a large predictive power on potentially influencing someone's outcomes. And that's only going to get better.
Accurate are all these products that are out there, this predictable model, prediction models, like how accurate are they?
Yeah, obviously there's so many different models in the industry, and there are good models and very poor models as well. But if we take the good models that are out there from great companies, you're going to see a very high level of sensitivity, specificity, accuracy, whether it's on the diagnostic side, whether it's on the predictive analytics side. But we have large data sets now that we can train a lot of these models on, whether they're open source data sets, closed source, whether it's the data sets of companies that have accumulated large data from their products, including Pronovo. They've done over 100,000 MRI scans. So you can imagine the magnitude of data that they acquired and what they can do with it in terms of model training. From our perspective, we've trained our AI and science engine through various enabling databases, including NHANES and Lifeline and UK Biobank. And we use a multi-layered enabling technologies to help analyze data. And through our own proprietary predictive models for age clocks and others are able to predict and project. And we could also validate these models through, analyzing large data sets as well, especially in terms of mortality and chronic disease development. So it's constant research, but we're reassured with what we're seeing is that these predictive models, have a predictive power. And if we use it in practice, whether it's the wellness practice in a gym or a medical grade practice, we can enhance our predictive power and care delivery. So we can become more personalized, proactive, preemptive, predictive. And that's the next generation of medicine.
Mark your calendar for Disruptive Doctors annual conference and exhibition. It's happening the 20th and 21st of September. This conference isn't about fitting into label. It's about expanding what is possible in healthcare and reimagining the doctor's role in it. This is where forward-thinking doctors come together to drive real change in healthcare. For those who refuse to settle, this flagship event brings together doctors from diverse backgrounds to explore fresh approaches, share ideas, and connect with a community of doctors to impact healthcare differently. Remember to get your tickets on our website at disruptive-doctors.com/conference 2025.
What do most doctors get wrong about medicine today? Because you just mentioned that is the future of medicine. So what are they getting wrong today?
It's an evolution. We're going through an evolution of what we didn't know and now we know, which is use of large data sets and biomarkers to become more predictive and proactive. It's not that we're wrong. It's just that we didn't have these tools and models to help upgrade our service care delivery. The question is, how resistant is the medical community going to be to a lot of these different products and services that are out there in the market today? We're starting to see adoption of AI products in traditional care models. And a perfect example is the AI scribe. So different AI products now can help assist the healthcare provider in data acquisition and medical history note optimization. And we're seeing those products being incorporated in electronic medical records to increase productivity and efficiency at home. I can only imagine that in a couple of years, we're going to have a lot of these smart and AI-based products being everywhere in the traditional healthcare setting. And for me, that's a massive upgrade because the healthcare industry is likely to be the most impacted by AI in terms of disruption and upgrade because it's very siloed, fragmented, and it requires these tools and models to become a more efficient system. Also, physicians need efficient tools so they could focus on becoming humane again, focus on the patients and the clients rather than focusing on doing labor work that is preventing them from delivering very compassionate care. And so I think there's going to be adoption and acceptance of various technological products in the traditional healthcare system. I think we're going to see major cost savings and productivity and efficiency. And in parallel, we're going to see different healthcare delivery models, including the precision health, the longevity, the wellness related models that are very well equipped to offering preemptive, predictive, proactive care delivery, including the gyms, because of customer loyalty and a large consumer database. You could start offering various screening and diagnostic services through these technologies so you can catch disease early and optimize humans outside of the traditional care setting. And I'm excited. I see it. The wellness and the longevity economy is a real economy projected to be 6% of global GDP by 2030. It's $10 trillion market value. It's moving in so many different segments, from real estate to wellness to gyms to clinics to consumer products, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So I think traditional care providers need to really understand that there is a health system outside of traditional care models, and we need to become better listeners and adopters of a lot of these technologies.
Do you think physicians are resistant to adopting these other models?
Yeah, generally speaking, no one likes to explore things they're very comfortable with. And especially if they're comfortable with what they currently have, which may not be the best products and services. Also, traditional care providers are typically afraid of the regulator or incorporating tools and services that are not validated by various healthcare bodies, including the FDA. And a lot of these models and products that we have today are more on the wellness than the medical grade sort of software as a medical service or FDA registered products. And so I understand the concern of slow adoption, whether it's on the fear of technology side or the lack of regulatory requirements or the lack of, say, randomized control trials or different scientific evidence needed at a minimum to bring these products to the traditional healthcare industry. But I always say, these wellness and longevity products and services may not need to be adopted by the traditional care model because there's a parallel healthcare system that is growing independent of the traditional care model. So Americans spend over $4 trillion on healthcare. There's going to be a parallel system that is more proactive and preventative. It has its own addressable market, consumers, infrastructure, and economy. I think both tiers need to converge or talk to one another at various degrees. And if the traditional healthcare model will not adopt some of these, let's call them wellness products, then it's understandable. It's understandable. But But I'm seeing more and more doctors becoming aware of, this parallel system that's out there today that's also being promoted by a lot of celebrity. And yes, it has a lot of fake claims and let's call them snake oil products. But the traditional care model is also not very clean. It's got a lot of bad actors, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, we're going to see multiple systems run in parallel, and you're going to see our consumers jump from one system to the other. And that's going to create a lot of confusion and, mistrust between the different systems. But hey, that's an expected outcome.
Well, I mean, I actually resonate with that because I've had friends um, who were providing EECP services. I mean, they did it properly because they were doctors. They have the proper setup infrastructure. But then there's this parallel groups where they are selling all the services, but they're just marketers. They are marketers and they're selling a lot of claims that are not proven. And the ones that actually get into trouble are the doctors that are providing the services.
Yeah, it's again, there's the traditional care model is regulated, and the College of Physicians in the context of physicians is very strict with their guidelines, and any major deviation away from the scope of work can lead to a penalty. So physicians, by training and through these regulatory landscapes, are are risk averse, generally speaking, and don't want to potentially accept or incorporate a lot of these unregulated products and services. So I understand where they're coming from. It's a function of how the traditional care models were crafted. Right now, these models are being challenged in the United States with the new administration. They're trying to remove barriers, especially regulatory barriers for introducing different products and services. I think we're going to see an inflection point in healthcare today, especially with AI and technology, that we need to rethink how we provide care delivery across all of these systems, including traditional care models. And we need to lower the barrier to entry of well-researched products and services, including regenerative therapies, which are currently banned in the United States. So there's going to be a redesign.
I think I'm really excited to see that, especially at this part of the world where things are, I mean, this whole longevity and all, we're still quite far behind. And I'm really excited to see what it could be in the next 5 years.
Yeah, the next 5 years is going to be so exciting that we're going to have the ability to regenerate organs, the ability with very high power to predict different outcomes, the ability for all of us to have a digital twin that will analyze our multi-omic data and constantly talk to us about how to become better versions of ourselves.
Well, what do you think is the mindset change or skill sets that doctors need to make this shift, to this new world of medicine?
Yeah, be open-minded. Go to conferences, read also conferences outside of traditional conferences, wellness conferences. Listen to your consumers. They want a lot of these product services, and try them yourself, whether it's on the supplement side or, focusing on the basics. Like a lot of doctors don't get the basics right, like getting optimal sleep, for example. A lot of doctors have risk factors, right? From obesity to hypertension to snoring. Well, how about we start with optimizing ourselves first? So we understand the impact that has on our body, so that we can become better care delivery or provide better services, right, for proactive health.
So earlier in this podcast, you mentioned that, being a doctor was rewarding, yet very limiting at the same time. And that caused you to transition. And at one point, you realized that clinical medicine alone is not for you. Tell me more about that. Like, do you still practice right now, or have you completely shifted?
Yeah, I practice part-time in a longevity center to provide proactive care, but say most of my time is dedicated to venture building and investing.
Okay, so how did you get into this venture building? And you've been trained a physician most of your adult life, and then now you're in venture building. How does this, like, did you bring all that experience with you?
Yeah, it was through, I think, just coincidence, started investing early on and realized that I can do more in this field. So became an advisor to several companies in the health and wellness space. Um, and that sort of gave me an opportunity to see what it takes to build a startup. And I loved it. I loved the problem solving aspect of it, the strategy, the fundraising, and went on to start my own startup. And it's really rewarding because it helps build a product that has huge potential for scale, especially in precision medicine.
How has the journey been so far?
It's not straightforward. It has a lot of ups and downs, but you meet a lot of incredible people along the way. It gets very rewarding when you see the final product and the impact it has on the individual. It's also very refreshing to know that there are individuals out there that want to back bold investors, bold startup founders, and investors. Some investors like to take risk on a lot of these early stage ideas. It's also nice to see that there's a very big movement in this space of health and wellness, and there are a lot of great companies building great products, a lot of great founders and investors in this space, which sort of confirms my interest, my long-term interest in wanting to continue to double down on being an investor and a venture builder than a full-time clinical care provider.
Okay, so for doctors who want to follow in your footsteps, what would your advice be?
Early stage investing is high risk, so understand what you're getting into. There's sort of a formal path of learning through CME courses and formal programs on where to invest, how to diversify your investment. If doctors are very skillful and can become great advisors so maybe start with an advisory position in exchange for options in the company, advisory options. That's potentially a low risk, high reward and exposure approach to the field of startups and venture building. A lot of the doctors I know are business people as well. They own their practice and they know how to read a financial statement. They know how to get money from lenders. They scale businesses. And I know doctors that run publicly traded companies as well. So it really depends how deep they want to go in this space. On the investment side, though, I think doctors are not good investors in general. And I would recommend against investing in early stage startups because of the high risk, lower reward potential. I don't touch stocks, so I won't give any stock advice. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, this is a question we ask all our guests. How do you see yourself impacting healthcare differently?
Yeah, today I'm fascinated by the use of software, including operating systems to upgrade clinical infrastructure. So clinics and physicians that run those clinics or healthcare providers that run those clinics can have, an operating system tool to scale efficiency and productivity and to offer clients and patients all these different technological rails to help with a more predictive future. So I'm spending a lot of time right now on designing and scaling these operating systems for upgrading the existing traditional healthcare model.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fady. Is there anything that we didn't talk about during this podcast, which you feel that is really important for doctors to know as we navigate this changing healthcare landscape?
Yeah, stay optimistic. The future is so bright and don't fear technology. I think we need to incorporate more and more technological tools to enhance care delivery. And for instance, if you're still writing notes on a paper, it's time to upgrade that, right, to digital notes. If you're not using a scribe or an AI model that listens to your history and summarizes it on a note, then it's about time to do that and dig deep into the future of medicine, which will include multiomics, digital twin, predictive analytics, understand consumer products, consumer trends in healthcare, which is going to generate, by the way, a lot of incidental findings. So then we as care providers will play an important role in counseling and intervening when needed with a lot of these sort of incidental findings, especially on full body MRIs. And on the investment side, you explore the world of startup with caution, but at a minimum, become an advisor for a company and help shape the trajectory of a founder and a startup through your expertise.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fady. If you guys are enjoying our conversation so far and considering exploring new career path, be sure to check out our non-clinical Pathfinder workshop, and also do come for our annual conference, the Disruptive Doctors Conference 2025, that's happening this 20th and 21st of September 2025, where like-minded doctors like you come together, share ideas, and impact healthcare differently. And also remember to download the Disruptive Doctors app and start connecting. That wraps up another episode of Postcall Beyond the White Coat. Until then, I'm Dr. Selina. Take care and keep disrupting the norm.
Hey, good.
Join Disruptive Doctors. Disruptive Doctors. Impact